I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Community Equity Commission on Thursday, April 17th, 2025. At this time, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Agawamba. Commissioner Ahmed.
Here.
Commissioner John Grass.
Here.
Commissioner Lewis Miller.
Here.
Or Chair Lewis Miller. Commissioner Messias. Commissioner Mukalel. Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Let's please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Chair and Commission, we do not have any additions or deletions from staff.
Okay, any modifications to the agenda?
Chair and Commission, we do not have any modifications from the staff.
Okay, at this point, do we need to vote on this, to accept? At this time, I'd like the commissioners to accept this, yay or nay.
Commissioner Nelson, I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second motion,
Commissioner Schultz, I second the motion.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, that has been accepted. Now, approval of the minutes from March 13th. I think we have a few adjustments in there. What was it I saw? There was something about, I'm not sure where it is now. Did anyone else have any changes to the? Oh, here it is. Okay, so the commissioner called the meeting to order. It should be Lewis Miller, I believe, from March 13th at the beginning of the minutes.
Chair and Commission, I will make that change. My apologies.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, good, thank you. And I believe that was it, unless someone saw something else. Any other commissioners see anything? Okay. All right, do we have a motion to accept the minutes from March 13th?
Commissioner John Grass would make a motion to accept the minutes.
Thank you. A second?
Commissioner Nelson, I second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey, the minutes have been approved. All right, we'll move right into business, the discussion on the 2026 budget request. And I'll turn that over to Chris for that.
Chair and Commission, thank you. We are here tonight to discuss the 2026 budget request for the CEC. As a reminder, the CEC requested $1,500 last year for projects. That included an MLK Day essay contest, a Juneteenth celebration, a cultural engagement club, and a pride flag. The CEC has currently spent $548 of the $1,500 for 2025. Budget requests include the following: why the budget was requested, who will be responsible for carrying out the activities, when and where the activity will take place, what will be purchased or accomplished with the budget, how much is requested, and then tying it to the ready priority lists. So we received 4 requests for 2026. My apologies, it says 2 in the staff report, with a total of $3,100. So what I'd like to do is open up these items now for discussion. Oh, and just kind of a note too. So we are starting the internal budget requests now. So we had our first budget kickoff meeting yesterday. We will plan to go to council for those initial budget discussions in June, and then there'll be a final adoption later on this year.
Okay, so do we have any commissioners that would like to discuss some of the budget? We're looking at the budgets that have been submitted, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair and Commission, we're looking in the budgets that have been submitted to go into the budget process for 2026. So that's not saying they'll be approved. It just gets to get into the ring with all the rest of the requests from staff and other community members. So,
Okay. Yes.
A point of clarification, do we have a set limit that we have to fit these requests within, or will they go forward and see what council says?
Chair and Commission, we do not have a set limit. Last year, after discussion, the council approved $1,500. I think we've been successful with some of these projects, so you could propose sort of any number of that and just sort of see what makes it through the gauntlet. But yeah, I think just kind of what this group feels strongly about, what they think they can be successful in implementing is kind of what I would use as maybe guidelines for these discussions.
So I believe right now we're just looking at how much to submit for next year, right?
Yeah, I'd recommend looking at how much to submit for, and then maybe if you can set projects or the priority of projects too. Because one of the things that may be asked by council is, if we were giving you $1,500, what do you think you can do with that?
Okay.
So I think that would kind of help the conversation.
Okay. So from what I'm seeing, we did submit 1,500 last year. We still have a balance left. And we do have items submitted to use up for this year. So based on that, what are we thinking to submit for next year?
Chair and Commission, so what we currently have submitted is a Juneteenth celebration, just supporting for ongoing events that push equity, Youth Art Festival, and then funding for the Martin Luther King Essay Poetry Contest again.
So should we make a decision on these three that have been submitted in order to know how much we need to submit for next year?
Yep.
Okay. Has everyone, commissioners, have you had a chance to look over the three submitted?
Yeah, 4.
Four. Sorry.
Yeah, Commissioner Ahmed, I have a question. I did see it, and I did really read it. My question was, when you're setting a budget for the following year, there is always a data point of how much do we have for this year, and what does it look like, and is it enough, or do we know we're already shortfall for this year? So I'd like to ask for this year, what has been planned for each of the events, and then how does that really look like?
Okay. And that sounds fair. The four, that have been submitted,
And
For
I'm
this
talking
year.
about 2025.
for 2025.
Yes.
In order to be able to use the funds up that we still have out there, the Juneteenth one, we're looking at anywhere from, what did it say, 500 to 1,000. The others, I'm just looking for the amount here, 600, okay, that's the 600 to 1,000. There's one for 1,200. And then there is one for 250, total of 600, and then one for 300.
Madam Chair, I think that's 2026. That's what we're submitting for. And if I'm correct, Commissioner Ahmed was asking about what do we have left in our budget
Right?
of the 2025 spending?
Right,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm taking you off track then.
yeah, and that.
And are we coming up with a shortfall? In other words, I think we had a total, we have to buy the flag out of that, and then the rest was
Yep.
Juneteenth.
Yeah, so it did show us how much we have left. And the one submitted for Juneteenth is to help use that fund, some
Yep.
of those funds up, along with the LGBTQ flag that we still have to purchase.
Chair and Commission, kind of a 2025 quick summary off the back of a napkin sort of approach. So we had $1,500. We ended up spending over $500 on the MLK Day essay contest shirts, which was awesome. But that was, I think, way more than we expected to spend on those shirts. So I think we're a little bit behind the budget there. With the flag purchase, which could be up to $400, we're still kind of waiting to get those final numbers back. We're probably looking at around $500 or so remaining. I don't think that's enough to cover all the events we have for this year. We may just have to have a smaller cultural event if that's still something we want to sort of look at doing later this year. I think if we looked at for 2026, not giving every single person a T-shirt, because not everyone actually came and picked up the T-shirt, then I think that would be I think we would have covered everything here. I think the 60-plus T-shirts we purchased kind of blew up the budget in a unexpected way.
Okay, did that help clear
So,
some of that up?
just for clarification, for 2025, what I heard was we spent about 548 or so, and then there's a flag for 500, and there's in Juneteenth, roughly at the low end would be about 500. That's your 1,500.
Chair and Commission, yes, that is right. So again, I don't think there'd be much, if any, funds remaining. We have not sort of set what Juneteenth looks like, but I think $500 for a smaller event is probably where we'll land. But we'll also have to wait and see what comes in with the flag too. So depending on what that cost is, maybe we get a cheaper flag, then maybe we have some additional funds available for a future cultural engagement event, but we're still waiting on that number.
And for 2026, looks like if I take the low end of what has been requested for the Juneteenth, let's say 600, and then there's 1,200 for the two other events, that's your 1,800, 600 for art festival, that's 24, and then 300 for the MLK. So what 2,700 is what I get, close to $3,000. So the request, if I even take the low end of the number range, it's like double of what we had this year. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So at some point, we got to figure out what is feasible that may be approved, and based on that, plan how to spend it.
Chair and Commission, that's correct. I think also, again, like what's feasible for funding and also what's feasible for this commission to do. I think that's one of the things that the in-kind donation from commissioners is a lot of that too, that I always want to remind people to take into account.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. Proposals or questions out there for 2026 right now, as far as funds? Any suggestions? Commissioner Schultz.
Yeah, so is it fair to start with the Martin Luther King, given that we already did that this year, to kind of see how much we are projecting and how much was spent, and maybe what we could do differently as a starting point? Or are we going through each one at a time? Are we deciding today, or are we just, this is the initial conversations, maybe just kind of getting some guidance on what we need to do today?
Chair and Commission, what could be good is maybe you talk through each project and see if there's any additional questions you want to ask the group. We have the ability to sort of like talk through this more at the May meeting too, and sort of set that final, here's what we recommend before I think the June work session. But I think that's a great opportunity to sort of say, what's the scope? Do we think we could do this? Is there anything else we're not taking into account for this amount? You can also ask staff to do some additional research on some of these items to say, hey, I think it'll be 1,000. Could you go look into how much this will cost, X, Y, and Z? Just kind of additional time for you to talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any suggestions as to, if we look at all the items, it's going to cost more than what I think we will, let me put it this way. If we put all the items that have been submitted together and submit that to the council, going back to what Commissioner Ahmed said, we may be doubling what we have for this year, which I think is going to be hard, maybe, possibly, to be accepted. So, which means we're going to have to narrow it down to which items that have been submitted we should be looking at for next year.
May I ask a clarifying question? Is it the right time to ask that?
Yes.
Okay. So of the four things that we read through for 2026, the MLK, we know about that. Juneteenth, we know about that. The two new ones, one is the art festival, and the other one is a ongoing events. There's some cultural exchanges, two separate events there. And that probably has the biggest chunk of money, two of them for $1,200. So my thinking is, by what time do we need more clarity and some details on what that is? Because whenever it comes time to talk about budget, it's a question of let's really get the details, and then are there alternate ways that you can balance that somehow? When do we need to come back with that proposal? We may have to deep dive. I'm not sure whether we should discuss it today or whether we need to come back later on.
Commissioner?
So I do have a quick question too. I know last year we were pretty hesitant to ask for the big number. I know that. But my question is, what happens if we do? Like, what if we ask for like 3,000 and they say, no, not 3,000, but we'll give you 2,000? So I'm just saying, what is the risk in it? So if we say, you know what, this is what we like to do, here's what we think it's going to cost, and we can get more information about it, and then say, if they say no, we're going to be able to give you guys 1,500 again, then we work with that. I'm wondering if there's, any challenge with that, or?
Chair and Commission, I don't think there's any challenge in that. I know staff has been told to sort of tighten our belts, but I also think that, again, you sort of say, here's what we're proposing, here's what we think we can do, here's what we feel like we need to do those things, and then, we can then sort of have the conversation if there's more information needed, or if, you get $1,500 again, here's what we can do with that amount, so.
Commissioners, I'm going to throw something out, and we can debate it. What if we set a budget for 2,000 and then work with what we have as far as going to the city council? Or do you think we should go with more?
Sure.
Commissioner Schultz?
I think I'll reflect back to what Commissioner Agnoma said, is I know last year, I remember too how I feel like we didn't really have a lot of time to talk about the amount. I feel like it was just given the time frame. And I feel, as she said, we ask, and if we get a no, then okay, then maybe we can come back and say, okay, this is what we have. Because looking at these proposals, I believe that they are, in alignment with the Ready Task Force and where we want the community equity, like what our mission is as part of the CEC, is that this is 3,000 out of 365 days a year, So in my opinion, I do not believe that we are asking for a small amount of money, and it's okay to ask and, give our proposal and why we feel like we need to have this amount. And then when they do come, if they come back with a counter offer, then if they come back with a different amount, then we can say, okay, this is what we have. Then can we then decide to go back if we have a smaller, less than what we've been offered, to go back and say, okay, this is what we have. Then can we reprioritize what we need to do as a commission and then go from there? I don't know what.
So Commissioner Schultz, are you proposing an amount?
Am I proposing a different amount?
An amount based on everything here?
Yep, because looking at just what we did this year was 1,500, and just running through the numbers of what we have for next year, I think it was it close to 3,000? It's kind of what we just ran the numbers. I am proposing $3,000.
Okay, we have a proposal on the table. I'm going to take mine off.
Me not.
Yes, Commissioner
Aguamba, no worries.
Okay.
So I think also one of the things that strikes me too is when we do an event or we do something, I think we want to do it well. And so if we were thinking about 3,000, and I agree, I think it's reasonable to ask for 3,000. I'd be willing to consider like maybe just choosing 3 of them and saying, okay, because Juneteenth, I think is a great celebration for the community. I think 600 is lowballing it. I think having done a few events, you're going to need more than that to do it well. And I know that there's conversations about partnerships and having sponsors and things like that. That's going to be there, but I think you're going to need more money to do Juneteenth really well. and I guess that's what my point is too, is if we have to eliminate one of those off there, but we still ask for a larger budget, I would just say that's fine with me. I think especially, I would vote for keeping the MLK. I would vote for keeping Juneteenth. And then we could, it's neither here nor there for me. I propose the other two. The Youth Art Festival seems fun. And I can explain a little bit too about the cultural events. I know Chris had mentioned something, and he probably regrets mentioning it, but one of the things that we talked about was a naturalization ceremony, something like that, just to kind of do something, an event for the community, and that costs money. Cultural exchange events, I did with Be the Bridge. I know a couple of you guys attended a couple of years back with AAPI, Heritage Month, things like that, just to give us an opportunity to just bring people together with food and conversation. But also, I really like the idea of the naturalization ceremony, so that was something that I think if we could have some space and room to do that, that'd be great. But it's mine.
Yes, Commissioner Nelson.
Just to echo, I feel the passion and the work that went into your proposals, Commissioner Gwamba, and I am wondering if either A, we narrow them to 3, or if one of the 2 events has an arts focus of the cultural events, a cultural exchange commitment that has a sub-theme of cultural arts, or is tied in part to the history of naturalization process, or something like that. Would there be a way to pull some of those ideas together rather than 3 events?
That's great. I like that. Sure.
So right now, my understanding is we have a proposal of 3,000 on the table. Do we have any others before we get a second on this? Any other discussion?
No, but I
Go ahead,
wanted to hear
Commissioner.
back the timeline. When we ask for the 3,000, are we supposed to have what level of clarity on how we're going to spend it and the details for each program? Or is it just a top line?
Top line. Chair and Commission, basically what I would do, if this is what the Commission, apologize, wants us to move forward with, is we'll include this as part of the budget for either council or administration, and we'll just list kind of the items that we've identified that the funds will go to. Kind of the same thing like any other department. Fire, we're buying a truck. Great. We're not going to tell you what truck most of the time. That's not a capital project. It becomes later on. So I think that's all the detail we need now.
Okay.
Chair?
Okay. All right. Yes.
One more clarifying question. Do we want to submit the request in any, with having prioritized so that we decide rather than council what gets cut?
Chair and Commission, I think that wouldn't hurt. Just to say, here's what the CEC is prioritizing for 2026. I think that also kind of helps too, like as you go through those projects and say, hey, we did 3 out of 5. It's like, well, yep, we wanted to do those big 3. Those are the big ones. We thought we could do 4. We did half of 4, but it sort of shows that you're working down those priority lists. So I don't think that hurts.
So is it my understanding then that besides submitting the dollar amount, we have to share items? And this is why we're asking for this amount?
Chair and Commission, we do not need to really share detail. What I will just do is say MLK event, much like what I actually have written in the staff report, MLK event, 2 cultural events. I actually like the sort of cultural event, one with an art flair, something like that. I think that's a nice little split.
Just list them without going into detail?
Just list them without going into detail. I think at that work session, if there's questions from council, I will be there and I can talk through kind of what the detail was proposed. So I can do that.
Okay. So with that, do we have a second on the dollar amount of 3,000?
Commissioner Aguamba, I second that.
Okay, thank you. We have the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. So we have a budget request going to the council of 3,000. And then, is it my understanding, Chris, that you'll just list some items with that? Or
Chair
should
and
we
Commission,
tell
if you want to, you could also give a priority list. Honestly, this is something we could talk through the next meeting too, so people have more time to think about it and just say, all right, now that we have $3,000, let's go to that priority. So we can just add that to the next my apologies, CEC meeting, if that's something this commission would like to do.
You would like that now, right?
It can be next meeting too.
Are you ready to do a priority list now?
I think we should do it at the next meeting, would be my
Next week?
thought.
At the next meeting? Okay, good. All right. Well, then we'll move on to business item B, which is the discussion of the Juneteenth celebration for Savage. And Chris, you want to lead us on that?
Certainly. Chair and Commission, excuse me. We're going to talk about the Juneteenth planning for Savage. So kind of just something to keep in mind here. Size event, potential partners, event format, locations and logistics, funding sources, sponsorships, community engagement and outreach strategies, and then commissioner capacity in terms of time and effort. Current plan is that we will do it on June 19th at the Environmental Learning Center. We have that reserved. We also have some days before that and behind it too, so there's some flexibility there if we need to pivot and do that. Kind of hot off the presses, I actually just heard from Burnsville, the Dakota County Library. They're doing a Juneteenth event in Burnsville. So the city of Burnsville is not doing one. That's the information we had, but there will be a Juneteenth event now on June 21st. So just have that. I'll also pass this out. I just got this today.
And while Chris is passing that out, I would like to take us offline for a minute to
Quick picture and I'll pass.
to congratulate and honor Commissioner Agawamba for her 2 years of leadership for our commission. We would like to thank you for your work that you put in to lead us for the first 2 years of the brand-new Equity Commission for the City of Savage. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can get back on track.
Awesome. Again, it was a pleasure working with you for the last year. What the current agenda is that we'd have the CEC chair provide an intro to the event. The mayor would read a story. I've not confirmed that with the mayor yet, but I suspect if she's available, she would love to do that. Have a speaker and then have some activities, I think particularly centered around kids. Kind of what we want to talk about now with this group is if there's any ideas for speakers, any ideas for foods, activities, kind of talk about what that event looks like. So kind of want to open the floor too. One thing to note too, so recognizing there is now an event in Burnsville, we may want to think a little bit more about if maybe this year we reach out about partnership with them. I don't want to say we don't have one here, but it could just be an interesting opportunity just to have an initial conversation with that group of people. So I'll open it up to questions, any sort of planning information, any ideas.
Anyone want to, commissioners, jump in with any thoughts, ideas? I did check, I was in charge of the food from our last meeting, and I checked with the Shakopee Diversity Alliance, who held their Juneteenth for the last 2 years. I'm not sure that they're doing one either. They are separate from the city of Shakopee. And so they held a Juneteenth the last 2, 3, maybe 4 years. And they had their food catered from Old Southern Barbecue, which I thought for Juneteenth, having some type of pulled pork or pulled chicken barbecue would be perfect when you think about where all of this is coming from. That's one. And then there is an ABC Affordable Catering, who I've worked with before, and they also do the same thing, pulled pork, pulled chicken for people that can't have pork, little pork sandwiches, and they charge something like $13 a person. So I was looking at, if we had 50 people there, we'd be looking at about $650 if we wanted to go that route. So there's some possibilities there if we want to look at that type of food. As far as speaker, I did look into a speaker. He probably will not be available. He is the writer that just came out with a new book. Of course, I didn't write it down, The Barbershop. He's going around to a lot of school districts to read his book. He was called in by, what is Channel 4 in DC? What is that? The Gayle King Show. Yeah, so they flew him out to interview him about his book. He's local. He's an educator. He's a teacher. I worked with his mother in education for years, and he is up and coming and very busy. So I don't think he would be able to come as the speaker. I was hoping he would, but. Other suggestions? Yes.
Just a comment. I think the Juneteenth is coming up real fast. So I don't know this year whether we have enough time to collaborate with somebody else. This looks like it's pretty big. But I want to anchor the idea that I think it's a fantastic idea to partner with neighboring communities, maybe next year, maybe going really forward. Because this year, we were the only one south of the river, sounded like, and then Burnsville came in. I have this thought in my mind that maybe in a few years, we might have a huge celebration south of the river, Juneteenth, and it's a big deal. Shakopee, Burnsville, Savage, Prior Lake, who have you. So for this year, I don't know whether it's too late to cooperate with somebody else. My gut tells me maybe not, but I don't know for sure. But for sure, we should start the conversation for next year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other thoughts? Right now, it looks like the chair will do a welcome and some type of reading about what Juneteenth is. The mayor, we hope will, it says read a story. Have we checked with the mayor to see what she wants to do?
Chair and Commission, I will check in with the mayor if she's available to see whatever she wants. We'll make that happen.
And activities, the ones that I've attended, they had a lot of activities set up outside for the kids to play. The one beanbag toss, there's other activities. We could have a lot of things going on. We could have coloring station, more artsy things, possibly. Any other suggestions? Yes,
I'm not sure if it's a suggestion, but you were asking about speakers. I know a number of people that, it's I got on my list, but there's one that is a local, Ed Jenkins. He developed a podcast called Keyshawn Solves It, basically centered around Juneteenth. And he's someone I know, so I could ask him if he's interested in doing something like this. And then the second comment I had was about the food, and I'm wondering if we could use perhaps a restaurant that's Black-owned. So there's a number of them. Soul Bowl is Black-owned. There's Afro Deli. There's a couple of them. They're not local as in Savage, but they're in the Minneapolis greater area. So that's just something. There's two comments I had. And I think the agenda items you have for the Juneteenth event are actually good. I don't know if we can do more than that, given the timeline. We could get creative with like doing things like crafting. I know a couple of the events I've been to, they have crafts for the kids and like games and things like that, but that won't take a whole lot of work. That might be something that you just do on the side and have a couple of tables where kids can hang out and maybe get their face painted. I don't know. So.
Good. Yes, Commissioner
I'll be Nelson.
Nelson. Okay, Nelson today. Okay.
A couple thoughts about the activities. I know we had in some of our notes somewhere, do we want to get some students involved? And I know it's summer, but at least in Prior Lake, the Black Student Union has always set up like a community drop-off donations for the food shelf with educational pamphlets out about Juneteenth. And so trying to think of ways that without spending a lot of money, we're getting some education out there, but also that draws people to drive by to drop things off and do something good with it. I would assume there might be a similar group in either Shakopee or Burnsville, student liaison group that we could reach out to and find out about. So that's just a thought. And if we do bring those students in, perhaps they also would be willing to, depending if there's one group or three groups, create a station themselves to educate families and kids so that they might propose a craft and put it together and run it while we're visiting and facilitating the event. So that's just another thought. I don't know if that would make sense or how reliable that would be. And then two other thoughts that may or may not be relevant, whether or not the mayor chooses to do a story hour. Do we have any celebrity or not, people of color who would do a story and be in center? Or would that be helpful to think about who we're having up front of the room? And or we talked a little bit about the library possibly putting together a reading list of books and resources that could be checked out related to Juneteenth or related topics, and maybe even do a display that day so families could go by and say, here's how I could learn more, even if today I'm playing beanbag toss and eating, just to put that. So for what any of those are worth, those were the notes I had made when we were asked to think ahead.
Okay, any others? Thoughts, suggestions? Yes, Commissioner.
Now, I know you know this because you've been to a number of them, but a lot of the big events, they oftentimes will do exactly that. They'll invite other businesses to come and do the work, and they take a table or something like that to present something like a book that they're selling or that they wrote. I'm not sure if we have the capacity to do it this time, but it's just something to think about for next year. Inviting, even it could be even restaurant owners and things like that to kind of bring them and have them do the work, and they get to advertise their business as well. So, yeah.
Good, thank you. Any others? So here's my question. This is the end of April. We get into May, we meet in May. When we meet in May, we should pretty much, May, June, at least have a lot of things moving in May. And then when we meet in June, is that before Juneteenth? I'm just thinking. Yes, we meet before Juneteenth. That way we can finalize and make sure everything's in place. Is that correct?
Do we meet on Juneteenth?
What's that?
Do we meet on Juneteenth?
Chair and Commission, I'm just looking at
We meet on
now.
Juneteenth,
Nope, we meet on June 12th.
Oh, that would be funny. Because it's usually the 3rd, right? The 3rd?
Yep.
Thursday? This time it's the 2nd. That's funny.
Well, first is on a Sunday.
Yeah,
so.
there we go. Okay. That does it.
All right, so at the last meeting, we talked about who was going to start working on some things, and that's why I started looking into some food vendors possibly. And then I looked into the speaker, which the speaker I had in mind is not going to work. Commissioner Aguamba,
Yeah.
do you have some possibilities for speakers?
Yeah, I can definitely follow up with Ed Jenkins. So he does that podcast that I mentioned.
You'll follow
I
up
can
with
follow
that.
up with him, and then I do have a list of people that I could pull out as well, just to find out if they have interest in the topics that and we're obviously just going to be focusing on Juneteenth, but
Okay.
yep.
And Chris, would it be okay if we email you as soon as we find out some of these things so we can just keep the ball rolling?
Chair and Commission, I would love if you email. I'll start sort of pulling that information together for our May meeting. I can also reach out to the library and get the conversation going about the books. I think that's a really cool idea, and I'd rather start talking to them early. So,
Another thought I had, it would be nice to have background music going. The ones that I have attended that don't have a band or any big production there, they do have background music going, which is a nice ambiance to have.
Chair and Commission, we do have a speaker system, which is really nice, so we don't have to rent one. So we can facilitate that at the city. And I have Spotify, so I can make that work too.
Great. Yes.
Is the speaker system working? Have you've checked it recently? I'm just curious because we tried to use it one time and it was just the microphones weren't working and a number of things were not working, so we may want to make sure.
We've recently used it,
Oh,
so
good. Yeah. Yep.
I will confirm between now and then. Worst comes to worst, I also have a lot of personal speakers I could bring, so we have that covered.
Great. Any other thoughts, suggestions?
Do we have a time idea as to when we would look to put the event on?
Is it going to be Thursday, June 19th?
Like
Yeah, June
during the
19th.
day, during the evening?
Oh, as far as the
Time of day, yes.
Oh, great. Have we talked about the time? I'm thinking early evening. What are your thoughts? Thinking like,
Unfortunately, most people are working, so it likely is going to be
have to
after
be.
5.
okay.
I mean, if you want to get a number of, the working crowd, you're in
How
a,
about, what are we thinking, like 6 to 7? Or 6 to 7:30? 6:30 to 7:30?
I would say 6 to 8 would be reasonable.
6 to 8, 2 hours?
Yeah, give it 2 hours.
What do you think?
If you have a speaker. If you don't have a speaker, then maybe not.
We'd probably want to be clear about what the food offerings are, that people don't bring their family to have dinner. If we're going to,
Oh, yes, yeah.
just decide budget-wise, and then, lights, or maybe it's just little desserts or whatever, but let's just keep that in mind as we promote the time being at dinner time.
Yeah, Bloomington, I see, has planned from 5 to 9 p.m., and I'm pretty sure they'll have some food if it's that time slot. So, yes, if you show it up at dinner time, then I think there might be some expectations for more food.
Chair and Commission too, I think part of that too is reaching out to one of the food providers or both of them and just sort of getting a quote. Because I think if we have food, particularly something that's like sensitive, like pulled pork or something like that, you could do a 5:30 to 7, or you could do like 6 to 8, and people will eat, stay, enjoy, and then participate in the programming. So
So one other thought is inviting some food trucks an option, where if people wanted to buy food, they could buy it themselves. You could have 2 or 3 food trucks.
Chair and Commission, I've looked at that before for other events. Generally, food trucks, how they operate is you need to be able to insure a certain number of people, or else you have to pay a certain amount of money. And normally that's a pretty high, both foot traffic or also high value, so between $500 to $700.
Right. Good suggestion.
Yeah, great suggestion. I've looked into that for other events, and it's you would hope people just want to show up, but they have a business mindset for that.
Okay. All right, so we have some things in the works for Juneteenth. We just have to check into some things. We're looking at 6 to 8. Is that correct, everyone? 6 to 8? Pretty good? Okay.
for me.
All right, so we're agreeing on that.
I would also say, I mean, if you wanted to still keep to that earlier time, you could still capture the people that come, straggling in. You could do 4 to 6. That way you get the early crowd, and people are really hungry after 6, they can go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So if you wanted to do something,
That's a good
little
point,
earlier.
because if our budget doesn't allow for the amount of food that we may think that we would need for 6 to 8, maybe we can move it up and just have light things like cookies or, just light snacks and juice
Yeah.
or water, which might be more feasible with our budget.
Chair and Commission, what I'd maybe recommend is that so it sounds like 6 to 8-ish, so evening is kind of what we're aiming for, which is great, that's good direction. I think one of the things we'd want to determine is both cost for food, but also availability of speaker. So if the speaker can make, let's say, 4, we'd probably want to just take 4, or if like 7 works better, then we'd want to be flexible. So maybe that's something we get that information and then make that final decision next meeting.
Okay, so after we find out those things, we'll come up with the actual time and what we're going to be able to serve based on our budget. Okay, yes.
Couple more questions just to throw it
Yes.
out. Will we need to pull in some volunteers to be helping us facilitate that day? And then, in addition, do we think we can market to get a good enough crowd there in the time that we have left once we get it planned?
Chair and Commission, I don't know how many volunteers you'll need.
Okay.
I think with this group of people, if with staffing, I'm planning to be there. I think we'll be covered. If we also have 300 people, oh goodness, we may have to look at some additional staffing in the future. But I think for kind of what we're talking about now, I think this is a manageable group for this number of commissioners and then staff if need be. For the marketing side of things,
Chris, I think we may be able to get this announcement in the water bill.
Chair and Commission, I have to look at if we could do that in the water bill. I know we'll promote it on social media. I just have to look at the timeline for when our June city newsletter would go out.
Yes, we just met
Yeah, I
today,
think,
and I think there's a deadline of, I don't have it with me.
5/16, I think.
yeah, I think if we decide on a date and let them know now, it will show up in the June newsletter. There's plenty of time.
Did you get that, Chris?
Yes, Chair and Commission, I actually think so. Emily said the newsletter goes out. Let me just confirm that email. I just lost it. 5/16. So that's actually the day after our next meeting. So I think that just gets us there. So I think we'll be able to sort of set time, speaker, food offerings at the next meeting and then get it out.
Okay.
Is that deadline for submitting or when it gets mailed out?
That's deadline for submitting.
Submitting, oh,
Yep.
great.
Submitting. Wow. So we could get it in there. Good. All right.
That's
Any
great
other
news.
thoughts? Suggestions? All right. If not, we'll move on to the Business C, which is the initial discussion on equity lens for council reports. Chris?
Thank you, Chair and Commission. One of the things identified in the 2025 work plan for the CC and actually the admin team, staff, sort of our internal work plans, is building out an equity lens for staff to use when they're making decisions, particularly one that can be used as an addition to the council packet, which kind of helps us guide those discussions. So one of the things I wanted to have initial conversations on is kind of what an equity lens is, and then kind of like what some questions and additional like initial discussions this group wants to have on an equity lens. So kind of a quick short summary, an equity lens really helps serve staff and organization to start thinking kind of at like the front of mind about equity when making any decisions. What I've found is most successful with equity lenses is having them kind of like short, just a couple questions just to think about, not required all the time if it's not really an equity consideration, but just something there that sort of gets ingrained in how we do our day-to-day work. I've actually attached a couple equity lens from other cities as examples. Kind of interesting too. So Richfield has it equitable or strategic considerations. The city of New Brighton has it as community impact. And then the city of Roseville has equity impact summaries. So there's various ways for us to title it, various sort of expectations for staff in terms of how long to fill it out. But I just want to start this conversation. One of the things I want to hear from this group is what's your thoughts are on, if we want to proceed with an equity lens, and then kind of what questions we should start thinking about. What I hope to do in May is kind of bring back some initial drafts for equity lens questions for staff to use internally.
All right, commissioners, any thoughts on that?
Commissioner Ahmed, I really commend this really topic. A lot of times, once you read it, you think like, oh yeah, of course. But a lot of times if it's not there, it's not in front of you, sometimes it gets missed. So I really commend on the thought behind this.
Chair and Commission, I would like to add too, I think this will be kind of like the flag policy. This will probably be a longer project we work on. This is a very substantive change we're making across the organization, not just in terms of like how we think, but even just like the format of agendas. So I think this will be something that we start working on. We sort of set a draft. We have conversations back and forth with council. I'll work on staff in like internal education and kind of go from there. So I just want to be open and transparent that we're starting this process. It may be a couple months, if not later or early next year, that we maybe see some movement. So.
Okay, so this is just for our information to start thinking about this.
Yep. So our information, start thinking about, start having some conversations. I think over the next couple meetings, we'll kind of tighten up what a draft looks like, and then we'll start having those initial conversations, much like the flag policy went with council.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. So with that, anything else before we move into the informational updates?
Oh, as Mayor and, or not Mayor and Council, sorry. Chair and Commission, I guess, does anyone have any questions on it? There's anything you want me to do additional research on?
You had a question?
For the equity lens, you mean?
The equity lens, yes.
Oh, yes.
So a couple clarifying questions. One is, the way we're using equity lens is, in this case, is maybe a brief statement or a few sentences that might literally or figuratively be at the top of every agenda for commissions, for city council, et cetera. And then we could always have additional resources of good questions asked in a file, or somewhere
Yeah.
on the side. Okay.
Commissioner Ahmed?
Yeah, one thought is when I read your guiding principle, capitalizes on our community's unique qualities and history. That's true, but I also think we should think more about how do we continue to keep Savage a welcoming place for everyone, that term. That to me is much broader. Continue to foster a place where it's a welcoming place for everyone, something like that.
Yes, thank you. Okay, are we ready to move on? All right, so informational updates. Chris?
Chair and Commission, so we have the informational updates. Again, I just want to note, we got the flag policy passed. That was really exciting. Thank you for all your work, the months of work on this, very exciting. We actually had our I had a meeting with Public Works 2 days ago to talk about what this new flag system will look like. So we're working on purchasing those now. And I just really commend you for all your work and time on that. And it was a very successful process, and you should be proud for all the work and effort you put into it. So I just want to throw out that note there. Informational update, we have the Community Cleanup Day, April 26th. Basically, that's going to pick up trash in our community spaces. If you want, as an individual or as a group, to register to do that, please email staff. I have that listed below, or call in and schedule that. Basically, you pick trash up, you put out the bag, and our Public Works crew will pick that up. We have the Arbor Day celebration, April 26th at 10 a.m. Through 11:30 at McCall Environmental Learning Center. That's just a fun time, fun opportunity to get out. We have I think the final hands-on mosaic workshop is either coming up or just finished. That has been a roaring success. Tons of people have showed up. People are like staying back to do more work, so that's been really exciting. So just, again, great work from Emily and her team for getting that out there. Thank you for the community coming out. You can really tell the puzzlers by who really gets into it, but just great to see that level of involvement there, so that's really exciting. Savage Recycling Day is May 3rd, so that's an opportunity to get rid of stuff if you want in a sustainable manner. That's 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Public Works. That's a new location for this year. If you don't want to wait in line, come early. And then finally, the Savage Police is having their open house May 31st, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So that's what I got for updates.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any thing to add that's
Yes.
going on? Yes.
I'd like to add, we have a date now for the Rotary Peace Pole project. It will be on June 17th, Tuesday, at the River Bend Park, around 6:15, somewhere there, along with the Treats and Tunes event. And we just met on that this morning, and everything fell in place perfectly, so.
It's neat.
Good, great, okay. Anything else? I did attend the first mosaic workshop. I was not ready to be cutting glass. I do the color by numbers better. But I did participate in everything, but I love the color by numbers. So it was fun to see the number of people that came out to help with this, and to listen to the three artists. I'm going to call them artists in residence, because they are just full of a wealth of knowledge and explaining and walking you through it. So that was fun.
And my wife also joined, and my neighbors also joined there, and they had a great time.
Good. All right. Well, with that, if there's nothing else, oh, there is something else.
One more
Yes.
comment, sorry, I just wanted to pause, and, you know, we formed this CEC commission based on the work with the Ready team that we did. And when it comes to the flag policy, I just want to highlight how an idea, through the collective efforts of the team and in partnership with the city, can really transform how we move forward. Because Commissioner John Grass, I just want to commend you. He's the one that initially had really proposed a flag ceremony. And that really conversation went down the path, and now here we are, have a well-established flag policy for the city. So I feel really good about that, and I want to thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that,
As Madam Chair, Commissioner, I actually have one more kind of cool update that I didn't really think about, but it kind of directly relates to this. The city of Savage is applying to be a World War II heritage city. I don't know if everyone here knows the history of Camp Savage, but we were the first military intelligence camp in the United States. Basically, a number of Japanese soldiers were brought here to learn how to translate to support the war, which is a really interesting history for what was kind of a small town of Savage then. So we will be applying for that designation. The application ends or closes April 30th, but I am currently working on that. Part of that is telling that story. We've gotten some really amazing information from local residents who had family at those camps. So once I'm done, I will share that with this group. But just, again, something really cool, highlighting kind of the rich, interesting history, kind of from an equity side of things that we have, that Savage has. So,
and if you haven't had a chance, stop down where the camp used to be. There is a flag there right off of Highway 13, which you may not want to go down now because they got it down to one lane because of construction, but I have stopped there a couple times just to acknowledge.
Chair and Commission, it's by the dog park is how I tell people, just because it's a bench, a flag, and a wonderful monument, but it's easy to just kind of drive past. So just, again, something cool. And we kind of have some amazing photos of some of the soldiers' time at the camp. So very exciting project we're working on.
Right. All right, so with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? First of all, our next meeting will be held on May 15th at 6 p.m. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Commissioner John Grass will make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for attending. The meeting is adjourned.
Sorry about my call.